What is going on, everybody? And if you are one of those savvy shoppers that does your research before going out and buying something, and you are interested in getting information between the Hellcat OSP, that little bad boy right there, and the Glock 43X MOS, you can make your decision before you buy it. Go ahead and stand by and watch this video. All right, so we are venturing into these snappy little fellas today, the micro or slimline, those ultra compact carry things, because they are now much more viable than they used to be because you're getting far better capacity. In the form of the Hellcat, we have a 13, we're now a factory 15 round magazine. And in that 43X MOS, we now have the Shield Arms 15 or S15 magazine, which effectively gives it the capacity of a Glock 19. And some of you may be asking why these two, or why micros? One, capacity, size, ease of carrying. Those are the three biggest things that people are looking for when they're looking to carry something every single day on their body. Now, I have done full reviews on both of these. I will leave those linked down below, but this is gonna be a side-by-side comparison between the two, talk a little bit about that range footage, give you guys a really good idea of the differences in size, the dimensions, and of course the performance out there in the range and just how they feel overall, because there is a distinct difference on the range, that feeling under recoil impulse between the two of these. Springfield Hellcat OSP, obviously both of these are optics ready. So let's talk about what we got going on here. And let's take the Glock 43X MOS first. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna list like the basic specs, like the lengths, the widths, the heights, the weights, all that stuff on the sides here so you can see. Like I said, I've done full reviews on both of these. If you wanna see full reviews, you can check those out below, but this is just kind of a comparison. So the 43X, I use the aftermarket Shield S15 mags that allow me to carry 15 rounds in this nice small package. As far as the 43X MOS goes, it is very much looking like every other Glock out there on the market. No finger grooves, no double undercut, basic Glock texture on the grip right there. Little bit of a beaver right there, a little bit of a tail, something to get the web of your hand up there so you can control that recoil impulse a little bit better. We do have the accessory rail. You can see I've got my TLR7 sub on that right now. Great light, review coming on that soon. Trigger, standard Glock trigger, not great, works out there on the range. Moving up top, DLC coated slide, rear serrations, front serrations, plastic Glock sight, get rid of them. The only reason I haven't changed these because I just haven't decided which sights I want to go with. And I've been running the dot. Everything else in here is Glock as usual. Give you guys a good size of my hand so you guys can compare it to what you're about to see with the Hellcat. That is my big old hand on the 43X MOS. And there's just ever so slightly, kind of a little bit of a lip at the bottom right there, which just captures my pinky in the right place. So a little bit larger of a profile on the 43X MOS. We'll go side by side here in just a second. So as far as the factory mags on this one goes, you get the 10 round slimline mags. I don't even know where mine are at this point because like I said, I carry the Shield S15s because it gives me the capacity of 15 plus 1. Now, as far as the Shield goes right here, you're gonna get a 13 rounder and you're gonna get an 11 rounder. The bigger one, the 13 round, you get a little bit of a pinky extension on there and you can kind of see based on where my pinky is as compared to the Glock, the little bit of a difference in grip size. But if you're carrying the 13 round mag, like I always did with this, it's kind of a wash in the size. So we'll talk more about that here in just a second. A couple different options with the Hellcat, depending on which model you get. There's several different trim lines, safety versions, no safety versions. You got really good grip texture right there. You got a pretty nice ergonomic and very easy magazine release. No, nothing really crazy going on with the trigger guard, no double undercuts, nothing like that. Trigger is a little bit better than the Glock, Moving up top, we do have the accessory rail as well. This light is meant for the Glock. It will not fit this one. I think they have a direct one for this one though. Coming up top, we have our basic nitrided slide, rear serrations, front serrations on it. Does come with a U-notched metal white rear and a very bright night sight in the front. That is just, the thing is just insane bright out there on the range. Some people like the U-notch, some people do not, and they are usable through the optics. You can have a little bit of a co-witness there, not necessarily a co-witness, but your sights are still usable. As far as the dots goes, we're not going to get into those, but I'd avoid the hex optics for right now. They've been presenting some issues, at least for me. So let's talk about the direct size comparison so you guys can get an idea. Again, I'll grab one with my left hand, one with my right hand, and you can really see a little bit more length on the grip right there, but really close with that extended mag. So let's talk about our length here. Get these as close as I can. You can see a little bit of a length difference on the Glock right there, even though I've got the light on it. It's like a 1/4 of an inch, maybe a little bit more than a 1/4 of an inch longer, but just not much at all. When you put these down side by side, you can see that little bit of a longer profile. There is definitely going to be a little bit of a distance gained here on the magazine right there. You can see even with that Shield Arms magazine out of there and the Hellcat extended magazine out, you can see there's going to be a decent distance gained, a little bit more length gained right there on the Glock, as you can see. But with the magazines in there, get these lined back up best I can for you guys. You can see it is extremely minimal. We're talking like under a 1/2 inch, like a 1/4 inch probably realistically, right at a 1/4 of an inch. And that gives you a good look right here of that little bit more aggressive angle on the Glock. You can see the Glock hump right here sticking out. So the Hellcat does have a far less aggressive angle on there. So let's go ahead and talk about the range performance, how these things feel, and of course the price if you happen to be comparing these two for your next carry piece. Now that you've had a good look at those two up close, let's talk about that range performance, because that is what really counts, of course, and just how they feel in your hand. Now we're gonna kick this one off with the Hellcat first. Now I kind of lovingly named this the Snapping Turtle, because as you're out there running this thing, it's a snappy little fella, definitely more so than the 43X. The biggest reason for that is it's a little bit smaller, and the reason you're getting a little bit more of a feel of a movement is because the magazine is the part that is catching your pinky down there. So it gives the feeling that it's just rising up on you a little bit, or it's a little bit more loose in the hand, I guess you could say, because of how that magazine extension is grabbing your hand while you're out there on the range with it. As far as ergonomics goes, the Hellcat is definitely a much more naturally planed out angle for me out there on the range. It's not quite as aggressive in that grip angle, so I don't have to force my wrist down as much as I do with the Glock. Now that texture is definitely great. It's got that like nice sandpaper texture all the way around the grip, and then some reference marks up there on the front of that frame. And the trigger definitely feels better than the 43X MOS. But the mini brick, the Glock 43X MOS, one of the best things about this, aftermarket parts everywhere. Almost everybody and their grandmother is making parts for Glocks at this point, to include the Shield Arms S15 mags, which brings this thing up to the capacity of a Glock 19 being 15+1. They're a little bit expensive, and they've been sold out for a while because they've now come out with the Gen 2, which you can tell by the gray follower and a little bit bigger of a spline up on the front, but definitely worth it because it gives you that capacity, and they've been ultimately reliable every time I have used them. Now the 43X MOS, at least for me, is a little bit less snappy because you can see I get a little bit more on the grip itself, whereas with the Hellcat, that whole part of my pinky was actually resting on the magazine. So for me, it definitely feels a little bit more controllable out there. However, the ergonomics are not as good. So the Glock has a much more aggressive grip angle in it, kind of like I showed you up close. And that really does play with the ability of you having to force your wrist down like that, and it may not be comfortable or a position that's even, usable for you out there on the range, especially if you've had wrist or hand injuries. You might just not be able to crank your wrists as far down as you need to when you're running a Glock of pretty much any brand or any generation. Now, it definitely has a little bit less of a good texture to it. So the Hellcat definitely has that more aggressive, but not overly aggressive sandpaper texture, where the Glock just has that natural kind of, you know, protruding bump. It's usable, but it's definitely not as good as the Hellcat. So both of these on the slide are direct milled for the optic. So in the RMSC pattern, which is definitely the best way to go. So a direct mounted optic without having to use a plate is gonna be the way to go. So that's kind of a wash between the two, because all you do, screw the optic right on there and you're good to go. They do come slightly differently equipped when it comes to the sights. Glock, you get the plastic sights, whereas the Hellcat, you get that nice ultra bold night sight in the front and that U-notch rear, which definitely gives that Hellcat a little bit more of an advantage, especially for the price point, being that they are so similar in price, and you're probably gonna end up changing out the sights on your 43X MOS. As far as the performance out there on the range between these two, I have not had any issues with them. Both of them have run absolutely flawless on multiple different types of ammo, from basic range ammo to 124 grain Spear Gold Dot Plus P, which is generally what I carry around with me on a daily basis. So as far as the pricing goes for both of these things, it's all over the place right now. So I've seen the Glock for around $529, $550. It's just all over the place, depending on where you look, and a lot of places have been out of stock on it. As far as the Hellcat goes, I have seen it for $529, and I've also seen it for like $579. Things are just all over, so you've got to do your research on where you purchase it from, and hopefully your local fun store is not trying to gouge you in the time right now, because everybody is pretty much still trying to buy everything they can get their hands on. Now, if you are looking between the two of these, there are certain things that are just kind of like a wash. One is going to be the capacity of those magazines, because you get the Shield Arms 15 mags. Yes, they're aftermarket and you have to buy them, but they're 15 plus 1. So 15 in the mag and 1 in the pipe. So with the Hellcat, they now have 15 round mags for them, but you have to buy those also. So that's just kind of a wash, because you're not getting them with the Hellcat, or at least I didn't. I don't know anybody that has. So the cost per magazine shouldn't really come into account out of the box, because they're not coming, either of them, with a 15 round mag. As far as the 43X goes, you get a little less texture. It's not quite as good of a trigger, but it's one of the most reliable setups out there. The Glock brand is just known for being ultra reliable and carried by millions of people. When it comes to the Hellcat, you get a little bit cleaner of a trigger. It's a little bit smaller, feels a little bit more snappy, but you do get a solid little setup, and it's really gonna come down to what you guys like and what feels better in your hand ergonomically, because the overall size differences are just so minimal that it's kind of like 6 to 1, half dozen to the other. It just doesn't really make sense to break it down by, oh, this is 1/8 of an inch smaller, because that's not going to make, at least for me, a really huge difference in the carryability of it when the difference in size is just that small. Ultimately, the decision is up to you, and these things are like cars. You need to get out there and test drive them and see which one is gonna feel better to you. For me, I've been carrying the 43X MOS a lot lately, because it seems to be the perfect size if you have a little bit bigger of a hand, because it gives me a little bit more grip to work with, and I get to use those S15 mags, whereas a lot of people are gonna be super happy with the Hellcat. So get them in your hand, get a few rounds off of them if you can, and then hopefully the store doesn't rip you off. Well, that's what I've got for you all today. I hope you guys like learning about the Hellcat and the 43X MOS. Make sure you get belled up, get subbed up, give the video a like if you learned anything, thought it was good, or just like what's going on here. I'll leave links for all that stuff down below. If not, check out tacticalconsiderations.com. You can see all of my links there. Those are a huge help to the channel. All of those links help out and support what's going on here. And of course, a huge thank you to all of my Patreons out there. You guys are absolutely awesome. And Pete, enjoy that blackout trigger. You got the first giveaway on that one. The rest of the YouTube giveaway should be done at this point, but enjoy that thing. It is an absolutely fantastic setup. You guys get out there and enjoy some range time. Remember, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. I will see you guys on the next one.